Welcome back to another episode of the Giant Topic Podcast. I am your host, Christian Cruz, and we have a Week 4 game preview for you guys today as the Los Angeles Chargers will be facing the New York Football Giants this Sunday at MetLife Stadium in a game that, let's be honest, is not favorable for the New York Giants. There's a lot of different storylines going into this game for both respective teams, and we're going to talk about it. But before we do so, if you have not already, what are you doing? Join the topic, hit the subscribe button, leave a like and a comment below. It'll really help boost this channel in the algorithm. We're trying to hit the 1,000 subscriber mark and we need your help to do so. So please join the topic. Also, if you have not already, you can find us on all social media platforms under the Giant Topic. The link will be in the description box below. Thank you for your support. Let's start this video. So, the 3-0 Los Angeles Chargers will be headed on the road to face the 0-3 New York Giants in a game that, like I stated, let's be real, it's not a favorable game for the New York Giants, even with Jaxson being in the lineup. And it starts from the top. Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh is one of the best coaches in the entire NFL. He's going to make sure that the Chargers are ready week in and week out. And lo and behold, they look like one of the best teams in the entire NFL, both on offense and on defense, despite a lot of people wondering how their offensive line was going to look with Rashawn Slater being out of the lineup due to injury. And Justin Herbert has answered the call. Justin Herbert has looked the best that he has looked, in my opinion, the last 2 years to start the season. Justin Herbert's coming off of a very impressive performance against the Denver Broncos, throwing for 300 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception with a 76.6 completion rate. That is very impressive considering the fact that the Denver Broncos, in my opinion, have a top 3 defense in the entire NFL. And he was able to have his way with the Denver Broncos, both on the air. And when you look at the ground game, Omari and Hampton, I got some of his stats here. 70 rushing yards, 1 touchdown, 59 receiving yards. Omari and Hampton is looking like the guy that they drafted him to be. And Justin Herbert, like I said, is answering the call. Justin Herbert is not someone that you can give time to, right? If you give time for Justin Herbert to really go through all of his reads, he's going to tear your defense apart, right? Whether you're playing zone, whether you're playing man, he's going to tear your defense apart. And that's going to be a challenge for the New York Giants, who let's not get it twisted. They don't have the worst secondary in the NFL, but it is a secondary that does leave a lot of promise. It's a secondary that I'm not entirely high on, if I'm being frank. Now, looking at the ground game, right, because I do want to go back to that because it's important. The Giants have given up through the first 3 weeks in the NFL season an average of 5 yards per carry on the ground. And when you're going against an offensive line as stout as the Los Angeles Chargers, and when you're going against a team that has Omari and Hampton in the backfield, they're going to test you. They are absolutely going to test you on the ground. And they're going to test you through the air as well. Quentin Johnson is looking like the guy that they drafted in the first round out of TCU. A lot of people labeled him a bust, but this year he's really coming to his own. He's looking like that number 1 pick that they had in the first round. And in my honest opinion, he's looking like their number 1 wide receiver. Now, you flip that to Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen is looking like a guy who is turning the hands on the clock backwards. A lot of people, including myself, were very critical of Keenan Allen while he was with the Chicago Bears. Did not look like the Keenan Allen that we're used to seeing. A lot of people thought he was going to retire after leaving Chicago. He goes to the Chargers, and lo and behold, he is looking like the Keenan Allen that we all know and love, right? Then you pair that with Ladd McConkey, who was their number 1 wide receiver last year. Now, that is, to me, a very solid wide receiver room. And you got to give credit to their tight end room as well with, I think his name is Aronde Gaston. I might have pronounced his name wrong, but he's looking very promising. I've spoken to some Chargers fans and people that are content creators for the Chargers, and they have spoken very highly of him. And when you turn on the film, he looks stout. And a Giants team who, for as long as I could remember, struggles to cover the tight end position, the Giants are going to have their hands full if they cannot get to Justin Herbert. Now, when I look at this Giants defense, while if you have not seen it yet, you could go to the live section on our YouTube channel. We had Paul Dottino on the channel. I joined the guys over at New York Giants Rush, and he was telling us essentially that Dexter Lawrence is not 100%. He's going to need a little bit of time to get to the Dexter Lawrence that we're used to seeing, and it really does show on the field. Dexter Lawrence has not played to the level that we're used to seeing, right? Dexter Lawrence, in my opinion, and a lot of people's opinions, is the best defensive tackle, at worst, top 2 at his position in the entire NFL. This year, he has not been playing to that standard. I do expect him, as the season goes and as, he's recovering from his injury, to play like the Dexter Lawrence that we're used to seeing. It was also reported that he was wearing an elbow brace as well, so that's something to note. But the Giants are going to have their hands full on the defensive side of the ball, despite the fact that they've had Brian Burns playing at an all-pro level, leading the team with 4 sacks, coming off of a 2-sack game against the Kansas City Chiefs. He had another 2-sack game against the Washington Commanders. He is playing out of his mind right now, looking like the best edge rusher for the New York Giants. Then you have Abdul Carter, who, it's being reported we're going to see him get some more snaps at the edge rusher position, which that's why you drafted him 3rd overall. It's not rocket science. And then you have Kayvon Thibodeau, who is looking like, in my honest opinion, like he's having a very, very good year for the New York Giants. I personally have been in favor of re-signing Kayvon Thibodeau. I think it makes a lot of sense to bring him back. But again, none of that means anything if you can't put pressure and get to Justin Herbert. If you're going to give him time, he's going to eviscerate you through the air. Now, looking at the last 13 matchups between the two teams, the Los Angeles Chargers have the higher end of the stick. The Chargers are 8-5 in the last 13 matchups between the Giants and the Chargers. The last 5 games, the Chargers have a 5-0 sweep over the New York Giants, and they're looking to make it 6-0. Now, this will be Jaxson Dart's debut performance, right? And I'm fairly excited to see Jaxson Dart on the field. I'm cautiously optimistic, right? I'm not expecting him to go out there and torch that Chargers defense, because nobody's really been able to do that so far this season. So I don't expect a rookie quarterback who needed time to develop. Arguably, this was not Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll's plan to insert him in week 4, but I think it's unrealistic for fans to expect Jaxson Dart to come in and just light up the Chargers defense. That's just not realistic. But I do think that this is a Chargers defense that does have some things in their defense that the Giants can capitalize on, especially when it comes to the running game. Now, looking at the running game for the defense, right, despite them holding, and I'm looking at my notes here, despite them holding the Denver Broncos to 20 points, they were 2 of 13 on 3rd down. They gave up 153 yards on the air. They gave up 100 yards to Cortland Sutton. I'm looking at Malik Nabers here. Malik Nabers just had a performance of 13 yards after having an amazing performance the week prior against the Dallas Cowboys. You can't win the way the New York Giants have been playing football, right? It doesn't take a rocket science to know that. But I do expect Malik Nabers to get some more actions, get some more targets. I think he'll have a better performance than what we saw against the Chiefs. But I'm looking at Malik Nabers. I'm looking at Darius Slayton. I'm looking at Wan'Dale Robinson. We need these guys to step forward and step up. Now, I do think when you do insert Jaxson Dart into this offense, it opens up a different element to the game. I do think that we'll see a lot of things that we saw at Ole Miss. You're going to see a lot of RPOs, a lot of play action, a lot of quarterback design runs. You're also going to see a lot of up-tempo offense. So I do expect that to be shown in this game against the Chargers. I also wouldn't be shocked if we do see a lot of drives where they're doing a lot of plays to kill the clock, right? And to really wear on the Chargers defense. I wouldn't be shocked if we saw that too. But I do think that fans need to hold and limit their expectations with Jaxson Dart. Just remember, he is a rookie. Now, I'm all open for him proving me wrong and going out there and lighting it up. Obviously, as a Giants fan, we would love nothing more to see that. But just staying in the real world, I'm expecting him to have some highs and to have some lows. Now, I've seen some mixed reviews from Giants fans saying, why would you insert him going against the Chargers when you could have inserted him against the New Orleans Saints the week after on the road? And in my honest opinion, either you got it or you don't. There is no soft spot in the NFL. You treat every team with the same respect regardless of the record, right? And how Jaxson Dart plays this week is not going to sway my opinion on Jaxson Dart overall, even if he has a bounce back week next week. So if he plays bad this week and has a bounce back week next week, it's not going to change my perspective on Jaxson Dart and vice versa, right? But I do expect this offense to look better than what we have seen so far this year. Again, I do think that he adds different elements to the game that simply Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston were not going to bring you, right, under center. Now, I do think that when you look at the Chargers defense, right, they do have this the highest success rate against the pass at 67.5%. The next closest was the Minnesota Vikings. On the grounds, they gave up 83 yards and one touchdown, gave up 7.5 yards a pop. So I'm looking at Cam Scotabo. I'm looking at Jaxson Dart. Are we going to see a lot of RPOs like we saw against the Dallas Cowboys when Jaxson Dart was in the lineup? I do think we will. I do think Brian Dable wants to get this ground game going. Our run game has been pretty abysmal so far this year, has not looked the way that we wanted it to look. And now with Tyrone Tracy being out of the lineup due to a shoulder injury, a lot of the load is going to be put on Cam Scotabo. He had a great game against the Chiefs. But this offense is going to be tested. Jesse Minter, he's looking like a guy who's going to be a top candidate, to be a head coach next year. He has this defense playing lights out for the Chargers. They look like a top 5 defense right now. Derwin James is a monster. I don't believe Khalil Mack is going to be playing in this game, but at the end of the day, they're a defense worth respecting. And until the New York Giants could go out there and prove it on the field, it's hard for me to take the New York Giants in this game. Now, the flip side to that, right? When you have guys, like I stated, with Brian Burns leading this team with 4 sacks, Kayvon, Dex, Abdul Carter, you would like, obviously, for them to put pressure and to get to Justin Herbert, make him uncomfortable in the pocket. And this is a team that right now has a lot to fight for. You know, you have a coach that's on the hot seat. You have an owner that's disgruntled. He knows that there's going to be 2 planes flying over MetLife Stadium with some insane messages talking about firing Brian Dable and Joe Shane. I think it's a little premature, if you ask me. 4 weeks into the season, maybe out of the bye, if they're looking how they looked last year, I could get behind it. But I just think it's a little premature. But again, they are going to be tested. And I think it's going to come down to what offense are we going to see from this New York Giants team? Are we going to see the offense that we saw week 1 and week 3 that can't score a touchdown, that scores more field goals than they do touchdowns, that looks just bleak and abysmal, doesn't even look like they're playing the same level of football compared to everyone else? Or are we going to see a more efficient offense, a team that can capitalize on opportunities and not shoot themselves in the foot, get their playmakers the ball, and make the most out of their opportunities? Realistically, obviously, that's what a lot of Giants fans would want to see. But until they prove it on the field, it's very hard for me to say that that's what we're going to see. I don't expect them to have a performance like they did against the Dallas Cowboys. What we saw against the Dallas Cowboys, I'm not going to say is an anomaly, but it is unrealistic to expect that level of performance week in and week out. Let's just call it how it is, right? And then you look at the Dallas defense. I mean, they just got eviscerated by Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears. So how much weight can we really put on that game? So while I do think the offense will take a step forward, they will absolutely be challenged by this elite defense. And on paper, they are the better team, right? They have the better coaching staff. They have the better roster. This is a team in the New York Giants that needs to show up and show out. Brian Dable, you are playing for your job. You are playing for your job. Every loss, the rumors and the murmurs of you being on the hot seat and fans wanting you to be fired is only going to get louder. How do you silence that? With wins. Now, I've been vocal saying that I would have moved on from Joe Shane and Brian Dable last year. That has not changed. I do think that they should be fired at the end of this season. But one way to silence that is through wins. So if they can win this game, I do think that that'll, I'm not going to say silence the fan base, but I do think that that'll kind of quiet things down for at least 1 week. And then you have a Saints team who realistically you should beat, but you're on the same level of as the New Orleans Saints. Even if the talent is not there for the Saints, both of you are really bad teams. So the New York Giants, this is a must-win game for the New York Giants if they want any hope of turning around their season, if they want any hope of not losing the locker room and keeping the morale there. Now, I know that there's a lot of Giants fans that are pessimistic about this game. No issues there. I'm not going to fault you for it. You have every right to feel the way that you do because this isn't a good New York Giants team. They are not playing to the level that a lot of people thought that they were going to play, right? And when you look at the Chargers, they are exceeding expectations. I mean, the Chargers right now are in a position where they could run away with this division, whereas in recent years that has not been the case because the Kansas City Chiefs are the Kansas City Chiefs. However, the Chiefs are not playing to the level that we're used to seeing. So this is a great opportunity for the Chiefs to for the Chargers to get ahead and really, close that gap between them and the rest of the teams in their respective division. So I do expect the Chargers to want to win this game, obviously, but to try to make a statement in this game that, we're not pretenders. Our record is not inflated. We are a legitimate threat to be contenders. And they rightfully are. A lot of people had questions with how their offensive line was going to look with Rashawn Slater being out of the lineup. You move Joe Alt from right tackle to left tackle. He's looking like a top 5 tackle in the entire NFL. He's shutting out your favorite edge rushers and DNs week in and week out. No surprise there. That's why they drafted him. He is a phenomenal tackle. Every team would dream of having a Joe Alt on their team. Now, the New York Giants, they do have two bookend tackles in Andrew Thomas and Jermaine Illuminor, both playing at very high levels right now. Andrew Thomas, though he was on a limited snap count last week, looked very solid. Jermaine Illuminor has looked very solid the last 3 weeks, and I've been very vocal as to the New York Giants should do everything that they can, whether Joe Schoen and Brian Dable return or not. Whoever comes into this organization should do everything that they can to re-sign Jermaine Illuminor, even with the addition of Marcus Bowe. To me, Marcus Bowe is an unknown. This is a guy that has proved the last 2 years that he is worth re-signing. The Giants, outside of Andrew Thomas, even though he's dealt with injuries, don't have a lot of quality offensive linemen. They're very hard to find. And when you have one in your locker room, you don't let them walk for nothing. I wouldn't even mind even slightly overpaying for Jermaine Illuminor, knowing that the New York Giants have struggled finding and developing offensive line talent. But ultimately, this is a game that the New York Giants can't be outcoached in. It's possible that they will. Jim Harbaugh is an amazing coach. He's a cultural changing coach. He's done that everywhere he's went. Everywhere that he's been. So Brian Dable, Mike Kafka, Shane Bowen, they're going to be tested. And if they go out there and put a performance like we saw in week 1 and week 3, the boos will be loud. There will be more planes. The media will be a lot louder than what they already have been so far this year, and rightfully so. So the New York Giants, I don't think are going to win this game at all. I'm obviously open to them proving me wrong. But until they prove it, it's hard for me to pick them winning this game. Now, things can change, right? The New York Giants could go out there and pull off an upset. We just saw that with the Browns in Green Bay. We saw that as well. There were some other games last week that we saw there were some upsets too. So it's not out of the realm of possibility. But until they prove it on the field, it's very hard for me to think that they're going to do that against one of the best teams in the entire NFL, in the Los Angeles Chargers. Now, I do think looking at both teams, they are both fighting essentially for different things, but these are teams going into this game that are saying to themselves, we cannot afford to lose this game. If the Chargers lose one game and, the Giants win one game, that really does help them out. Giants, not so much, obviously, right? But like I stated, with the Chargers, a team that's looking to seal the gap between them and the rest of the teams in their division and take, the division title. The New York Giants are not going to take a division title, but you can't afford to go 0-4 on the year. I would honestly expect some changes if they do go 0-4. I'm not saying Dable's going to get fired, but I would expect some changes if they go 0-4. But again, I do want to see, how this offense is going to look. I do want to see guys like Malik Neighbors, Darius Slayton, and Wandale take a step forward this week. I'd like to see some Jalen Hyatt action. He's been a no-show so far this year. No surprises there. But when you have an offense that, is bleak in the run game and, is not efficient offensively, you're not going to win many games. So I don't think, again, the New York Giants are going to win this game at all. They're going to have their hands full. The positive that I do look at is that last week against the Denver Broncos, on 47 pass attempts, they did give up 5 sacks. So if the New York Giants can get to Justin Herbert and make him uncomfortable, and if their offense can show up and score points, this should be a competitive game. In my opinion, I think it should be a competitive game. When you have a team that you could hold the Chiefs to 22 points in a game that they should have won. When you have a team that held Washington to 21 points, another game that they should have won, and they should have won against the Dallas Cowboys. It's a lot of shoulda, 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 instead of getting it done. This is a team that there is potential for there to be an upset, but I'm just not necessarily banking on it. Hopefully they can pull off the upset, and make this an 8-6 rivalry going on right now instead of a 9-5 rivalry between the Los Angeles Chargers and the Giants. But we'll see. Offensively, the Chargers like to run the ball a lot. They have a balanced attack with running the ball and passing the ball, and the Giants don't. We can't really say the same for them at all. But I do expect Kafka and Brian Dable to get in their bag a little bit more, and I do expect this offense to take a step forward under Jaxson Dart as he does open up different elements to their game. But how are you guys feeling? I mean, do you think that this is a game that the New York Giants can win? Do you think that they could pull off the upset, or do you think that this is a game that they get blown out in? I would really like to hear what you guys have to say. I think it's going to be a fun game. I think it's going to be relatively close, but time will tell. We'll see how the New York Giants look. But like I stated, it's going to be fun. Let us know your thoughts below. And again, if you have not already, join the topic, hit that subscribe button, leave a like and a comment below. And we'll see you guys on the next video. Be easy.